Hey guys, thank you so much and welcome to the Game Your Future podcast. I'm Daniel and we help gamers realize their full potential. And today we have a special guest for you. This is Jonathan VanHorn, who is the founder of Tooth and Coin and is a CPA for dentists. So, Jonathan, thanks so much and welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. The CPA for dentist is not the what most people think like, oh man, that sounds like an interesting job. I do like to kind of joke and tell people I merged the two most exciting industries in the world into one, like public accounting plus dentistry, right? I mean, you can't there's no more exciting than that, right?
That's
So
absolutely.
yeah, happy to be on. I'm sure it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, CPA and dentistry, a wild ride for sure, right?
hmm Oh yeah.
But my understanding is you also have experience and are a gamer, right? Have played video games in the past and have enjoyed video games, right?
Oh yeah, games were a critical part of my childhood, going into adolescence, college, outside of school, things like that too. Absolutely was a huge into games from the time I could pick up a Nintendo. I can remember the learning, having to learn to how to hook the Nintendo up to the back of the TV and how all the cords worked and things like that. I think at the age of like 7, I could like transfer my Nintendo from one house to another. If we had to go to like a friend's house, I'd actually take the
Yeah.
Nintendos with me so that I could
Yes.
actually because if nobody else had it, then what was I gonna do if I went over there? Like you can't
What am I
even
gonna do
play
while I'm there?
Nintendo. So yeah,
That's right.
what are we
And
gonna do? Go outside and see the sun or something? So
yeah, who does that?
yeah.
And yeah, and those for those that don't know, right, for that back in the day, right, the original antenna, it wasn't as simple as just plug in an HDMI cable, you're good to go, right? So you had to fiddle with the coax cables on the backs to actually like intersect your own the little gosh, what are you've got the adapter, right? So to get
Yeah,
the
yeah,
antenna to
yeah,
work.
yeah. That you had the little like the audios and video, the inputs and all these other things you had to do it too. And like you went to a friend's house and it was like, oh, this isn't exactly the same TV as my TV, but here's some holes. Maybe I'll put it in there. Maybe it'll work, and we'll see. And then
It'll
sometimes it did,
work.
sometimes it didn't. So yeah. So,
Oh, I love that. Oh, such nostalgia moment. So yeah, thank you for that. So what we're talking about too, as far as gaming skills, right, and how we can transfer those to the rest of our lives. And so what I thought was interesting is we had mentioned a little bit before recording too, as far as having the level of detail, um, for and being a CPA, right, and having that understanding of all the numbers and getting everything right. And what it kind of made me think too is the this kind of idea in video games where it's like, we have varying games, right? As far as, trying to get, more money, more resource, more whatever, and trying to maximize whatever the resource that you're trying to get, especially these kind of what are city building games or resource management games. And so tell me about, I guess, kind of how you approach that as far as being a CPA and trying to like maximize the amount of money that you're trying to get for your clients.
yeah, absolutely. It's a really good comparative. So in terms of the games that I would play growing up. I was always very much into role-playing games and strategy games. So I was a Nintendo kid, Super Nintendo kid, Genesis. Kind of skipped the Nintendo 64 a little bit, went into PlayStation, etc. like that.
Yep.
But always huge RPG player and strategy game player. And so one of the things that I played MMOs. I did EverQuest when it was out. Did a lot of like Dark Ages of Camelot, all
Mm,
those kind of older MMOs that
yep.
kind of came and went. Did I actually snubbed my nose at World of Warcraft for a long time because I was like, oh, too much for the casuals.
Right.
And so actually never even played that for a long time. And then eventually I did, and I thought it was really great. But to kind of compare that in terms of it is, every almost every role-playing game or strategy game is about optimization in some shape, form, or fashion. Like you've got to optimize to get past a certain level, or there's always some type of a difficulty scaling spike that you got to hit at a certain point. Sometimes you have to grind to be able to get past that. And just the act of overcoming that challenge is always something that's really, compelling and always something really fun. Strategy games and like Civilization or things like that. If you're, you've got to continue to build onto certain levels and have different attributes to be able to get things to be better and things like that too. So, in terms from like going into the CPA side of things, it's kind of funny. I tell people when I was going to become a CPA, I actually started. my degree was in computer science, and then I changed it over to finance, and then changed it to mathematics, and then changed it back to accounting. So I jumped around a few different degrees, and when I went to through it, I was like, I thought accounting was going to allow me to kind of help optimize businesses. Is kind of what I thought it was going to
Mm.
be. And so, but then I got out of school and was like, people just really want to pay you for taxes and stuff like that, and maybe audits and things like that too, which audits they're not nearly as fun as you think that they would be. They're literally just going through the most boring checklist you could possibly find and
Mm.
just doing it for a lifetime. But so anyway, so in terms of when I got into taxes, it did come to optimization of like, hey, we've got all these people that are doing these things in certain ways, and maybe we can shape their experiences and do certain things to where the output of that transaction or the whatever it is they're doing with their businesses can create a better result in terms from of a tax perspective. So yeah, there's a lot of that. There's trying to make it better in terms of just the tax piece of things, but there is also kind of that want of being better from a business side of things too, and helping people with understanding like how their overhead works and how what's involved in terms of the math behind that, and comparing themselves to industry standards, helping them kind of understand like how you get from A to Z in terms of like the business cycle in terms of being a business owner. We worked a lot with like more kind of entrepreneurial dentist. And so I get to have a lot of conversations about that. And honestly, that's what's more fun. The tax side of things, I kind of feel like that was like level one or two in
Mm.
terms of the game that I've been playing. And so it's way more complex when it comes to the business side of things because the number side of it, input outputs, things that happen in between the variables, et cetera. All those things are actually the simple things. The hard things are the things that you can't control, which is typically the people that are involved. And that's, I would love it. I would absolutely love it if people act programmatically into where they were just like, sequential, everything was done like, oh, we said that this was how this was done, and it's just done that way from now until infinitum. It's not how it works, right? They don't do it. So yeah, so that's definitely a lot of how I look at the perspective of pretty much everything is like how do I level up? How do I raise the stat point? How do I raise this job attribute? How do I make this skill go higher? And it's just a constant revolving door of like which ones can we do and which ones can we do well. At the beginning, it's a lot easier to start raising all of them, as you get
Yep.
bigger, as you progress though, eventually, you know, you've hit the baselines on everything, and I was like, hey, now you got to specialize. Now you can't
Exactly.
just like do a little bit better. Now it's like you've got to choose. Like, are you going to raise a stat point? Are you going to raise a job skill? Or are you going to raise this other piece of it, or whatever it may be? And at a certain point, you start doing that for long enough, and everything's high enough. It's like, okay, now if you raise this, it lowers this, right?
Mm.
So if you go
That's
and try and make this thing better in your business, then you're going to have to probably take away from this thing unless you've come up with a really good way of doing it another way too. So anyway, so there's
that's a very
there's a
good
whole
point.
lot more comparisons I can give to
Oh,
RPGs and
absolutely.
strategy games if you want me to, but that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, I love the examples and the comparisons because you mentioned one thing too as far as the raising one lowers another, right? So and of course you played EverQuest, so I'm guessing you didn't play the competitor at the time, Ultima Online.
No, so I had some friends that played Ultima, and that was just a little bit. So Ultima came out, it was the first one, and then
Yep,
EverQuest came out after. EverQuest was a little bit better from like a graphical standpoint to where
yep,
it caught my interest a little bit more.
gotcha.
But yeah, so I know about it. I've
You
seen
know
people
of
play
it,
it.
so and
I know how cutthroat it was and how you just go take over people's bases and things like that.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. That was a fun game too. So yeah, I definitely played some Ultima Online. But you mentioned what's interesting that not a lot of games do this, but I remember very distinctly Ultima did this, where you had a certain maximum amount of points that could be allocated, and when you got to a point where when you had stats go up, other stats would have to go down, right? Because you had, I think it was like 700 stat points that you could, or skill points, I guess, that you put across all the like 40 skills or whatever they had, and the highest version in Ultima Online, those that remember, it's like you could be a 7x GM, which is basically a grandmaster, i.e., 100 skill in seven different skills. That was it. So which meant to get to 700 meant that you everything else had to be zero, right? So that's So this kind of analogy of like, all right, you have to raise your stats, but these other things get left behind, and you have to be okay with that. And like you said, or you have to have, either some other way of countering that, or, potentially even having someone else, hiring someone to cover that, right? And you bring up a good point as far as, and I want to kind of touch on, what we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier as far as like the hiring side of it, because, and what you mentioned, I love the example of like people are not programmable, right? So they're not robots. They don't just, automatically do what you say. You would love if that was the case. But tell me a little bit about, trying to work through that and kind of the hiring process as far as, because you mentioned it, I think a team of, 30 plus people, right, that are working under you. How do you get the right people to do the job?
Yeah, it's been a journey trying to figure that out, just to be honest with you. So it's funny. I don't think anyone listening is going to assume that the guy who played a lot of single player role playing games growing up is just a master of commanding people, or just a master when it comes to assessing people. But the thing is that, like you said, if you focus on certain things you can't focus on. Like, I can't be doing every single tax return that comes through our doors. We'll do somewhere around 1,500 tax returns in a season.
Wow.
I can't do all of those. We do 400 some odd sets of books a month. I can't do all of those, and nor do I want to, because again, those are the level one and level two things. If I don't allow other people to do those things, then they can't play the game. So I have to let them play that game while I'm doing the things at the higher levels, right? Same thing in terms of, progression in terms of whenever you or any game, like, hey, the people that are in the high level dungeons, they may, start a new character every once in a while to go try and do those other things, and they may still find them fun, but it's not nearly as technically challenging or as fun
Yeah.
as the higher level things. So you do have to go find those other people. In terms of getting good people, the way I compare that to video games is like a character select screen, right? It's like, whenever you load up a game for the first time, usually, you get to create your own character, and you can create your own character. You can set, appearance pieces of it. You can set, different, maybe stats that you have, or jobs or
Yep.
skills, or maybe you've got, it's like a deity that worship over another, and you can sit there. And what I would love to do, I would love to, when I grew up, to theory craft those things. It was just like, this was back before, the internet like told you the best thing to do. It was like,
Right.
I would just sit in class all day long, and I would just sketch out stats of like, okay, well, if I did this, then this would be this, and this would be this, and this would be this. The game that I loved the most that I did that with was actually not even a graphical game. It was a MUD, multi-user dungeon called Gemstones 3 that I played just an enormous amount of time in. It was a company called Semitronics had it. It was actually on AOL. That's where I first played it, and then they split off of AOL, and then you could pay like it was like $8 a month or something like that to play it back then. I used to have to. That was one of the things that I would mow my yard to be able to do. Was be able to play that
Just be
game.
able to play that.
But
That's
anyway,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. So, but when you rolled your character, it was the stats. It was a stat thing, and like I would sit there and I would literally roll. You had to actually manually roll the character every time, and you'd roll certain stats, and it'd give you certain like hierarchies of them. And be, oh, I got three high 90s and my 80 to 100, high rolls. Like, that's a good one. And so I do that for like 6 hours when I would roll a character, just to get the high roll, so I could have the high attributes and the different things and the different ways I would do it. And then you do like, hey, well, I'm going to do this skill or whatever it is, and then whatever it is. And you can do that for yourself, right? You can focus on things on yourself and make those things happen. Whenever you start bringing other people in, then they have their own stat sheets, and they may not care what roles they got, right?
Mm.
They're just going to be what they are. And so, in terms of like finding the right people and things like that, you do kind of look at what the positions entail in terms of like who's going to be there and what you need out of it. I will tell you that I used to be way more in terms of like thinking of like, hey, it's the technical skill. Like, I need someone who can really understand how to get through, this raid to be on my team or whatever it is. But now I realize like it's really not that. It's more like I need someone who wants to play the game. I need somebody who wants to be is looking to learn it, right? They may not be able to know, they may not know it right now. They may not have been in this raid before. But if I, bring them in and I tell them how to do it, they're going to try to do it how I tell them to do it. And because I've done it so many times, I know how to do it well, and they're going to follow my lead, right? And they're going to be a good team player and things like that.
I love
So I
that.
start from
I was gonna say I love that analogy. Just the comparing it to something like an MMO where you're going on a raid and you're trying to bring people in. to help do it with you. And having been a raid leader, guild leader myself, it was like the same kind of thing where it's like you didn't necessarily like we quickly found out it's like, just getting quote unquote the best people. What does that mean? And you're like, well, we thought, well, we'll just get the most either experienced or the highest geared people because they're going to bring the damage or whatever. But not always the case because those kind of people they didn't really work well or they thought better or that they thought they knew better and it's like hey we're going to do it this way because this is like a cleaner way to do it and they're like yeah I'm not going to do that and you're like well, you're not working with the team like you're joining
Mhm.
us like you gotta
I'm
work
here to parse. I'm not here to have fun. I don't
right
you
exactly
know,
yeah the people that are
if
just
you
like I
guys,
just need
if
a
your healers
parse
can't keep up with my DPS, that's not my problem, right?
and you're like oh my gosh dude so yeah so we ended up doing that where we would prefer people that would be quote unquote lower damage that didn't perform at that higher level yet. That was the key is that like they were willing to learn they were willing to accept feedback and say like okay well hey what if you did this what if you did this and then we would like if your gear was the problem we got to the point where it's like oh yeah we don't he didn't have the gear to like to do the amount of damage we need him to it's like we can get him the gear that's not the problem it's is he willing to work as a team to get this done? Is he going to show up and he's going to show up on time? Like these kind of things were more important to us after a while. So it's so
Yeah.
much more sense when you put it in that kind of context, right? So just hiring for someone to just says, yeah, it hits all the qualifications, great, and you're like, but are they willing to learn? Are they willing to listen and take direction? It's just as more important.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say the other part that's hard about it, like I said, is that you're not, whenever you're going through the character select screen, sometimes if there's pre-built characters already there for you, you got like six characters to choose from, like right, if there's like a lot of variety.
Mm.
And you're like, oh my God, which character am I going to choose, right? Which one do I want to have? And so you can pick one of those characters and you can move forward with it and you can play the game however you want to play it. The thing with when you hire, the character select screen isn't six characters, it's like 10,000, right? So
Yep,
and
bigger
you can't
bigger
see, and
selection.
there,
Yep.
yeah, and at the same time, there's no characters, there's no stats. You have no stats. You have a piece of paper called a resume that they have on there. You might have an hour-long conversation, 2 hour long if it's a more higher level position, 3 hours if it's something else, you know. And then you got to make a decision, and then you got to bring in them, and then if they don't work out, then you've got to be a mean person and be like, oh well, this isn't working out, right? So it's way different. And I wish it was simple as being like, hey, constant optimization is the most fun thing to do. Because again, that is the thing that is most fun to me for me to do as a business owner, as well as a like that is the fun that I have in business is getting to go in and say like, hey, we have this thing, we're getting X output. I think that we could get X plus three if we change these pieces of the
Mm.
process going through. Like that's a ton of fun to me, as well as on the other side of that being like, hey, we've got these clients are paying us this amount of money, and we're delivering this amount of value back to them. How can we raise the value really high without having them pay us anymore so that they receive as much value as possible from the services that we provide while we don't go and break our backs with more time going associated with. Now, there may be some time that goes into it on the setup and the execution and things like that, and maybe some investment on my part in terms of like capital. But like that's just super fun to me to be able to be able to do that because when I started the firm, I basically built it out of the thought of like this could be done better. Like there's a better game to
Mm.
play than what the traditional CPA path has is. Which for in the public accounting space, when I got out of school 20 years ago, it was you go out there and you work 100 to 120 hours a week and try to bust your butt to get as many billable hours out there to try and make your firm as much money as possible. And I was like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to do that. And I'll never forget the first Saturday, one of the first Saturdays I was working. There was a partner at the firm I was working at that was just screaming at a manager because he dared to let the manager had dared to let one of his seniors go to his kid's soccer game that day on that Saturday morning. He was like, that kid's 7 years old. He's never gonna know,
What?
and the manager was like, he's gonna be here this afternoon. And the partner was like, well, I'm not gonna be here this afternoon, and he's supposed to be here when I'm here. And so I was like, that was one of my first. I was like in month three of my career, and I was like, this is
Jeez.
not going to work for me.
You're like,
Um,
and nope.
so, uh, so yeah, so I went, probably at that point, I went for like 5 years inside of the industry working, trying to get my skill levels up. I saw an opportunity to, an educated gamble to go and start my own, and that's what I did. So,
That's amazing. So, and you mentioned a couple of times that I definitely caught, and I want to make sure all of our listeners caught too, is that you mentioned as far as, the game that you play, right? When you're talking about your career and being a CPA. And it's just such an amazing way to look at that, that I wish more of us saw it that way, is that you're not looking at it as like, necessarily just only a job or only even just a career, but really treating it more in that fun aspect of it to say like, this is the game. This is the game that I play, right? And I think that brings a lot more, like an interesting difference in focus on it, because now you're bringing it a lot more play, a lot more fun, and that'll let you be a little bit more creative, right? So I just wanted to, kind of catch that and say, is that how you think about it? And, is that purposeful word choice?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, um, tell my wife and everybody else too. It's like if I stop thinking the business is fun, I'll stop doing it. Right? Like, there's no, to me it is a game. The work is work, but you can approach it in different ways, and so I choose to approach it in a way that I find fulfilling and valuable and things like that. And that's so yeah, it in a way it is a game, and I do think that I think that playing games did definitely kind of brought me to that path because like I said, you know, so as an example, if I could play, Final Fantasy 3 from the Super Nintendo, Final Fantasy 6 in Japan, I could play that and I didn't have to just play it to beat the game, right? I didn't have to play it to do that. I enjoyed just playing it and like just leveling the characters up. I enjoy just maxing out my character stats. Like that was
Yeah.
some of the fun to me, right? And actually, the end of the game sometimes was the part that I didn't like as much because I had to end it, right? It was over.
Yeah.
And so the journey is a lot of fun, and the building of it's a lot of fun, and not everybody, the reality is not everyone sees it that way. And so,
Right.
I have team members that don't feel that way. I have clients that don't feel that way. I have colleagues that don't feel that way. But um, I can't change how they play the game. I can only do it how I do it. So yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
goes.
And I love that for those that have played, because definitely a big Final Fantasy fan myself. And so when you say Final Fantasy 6, I'm like, yes, perfect. Because it is a lot of that, because there's so much in that game that for those that have not played, where it's just, whether it's character levels and getting, all the espers and all the magic and like getting enough magic points to, I was that person. I was like, I got to get every spell on every character, because I was like such a completionist that way. I'm like, everybody needs all the magic because magic is so cool. And just spending hours just like, for I think it was what, the Tower of the Magi, right? Just
Mhm.
getting magic points constantly, constantly. And that was the way I played. That was the way I had fun. Right. And so everybody has like their own fun and their own differences. And yes, we got to respect it, but like, making it fun for yourself. Because otherwise, like you said, if it's not fun, you would quit, right? If it's not fun, and I think in the other way for other people, if it's not fun, that's what leads to burnout, right? When we talk about, I just like I can't deal with the job anymore, it's ridiculous, and you hear all the people are just like, oh, I'm just burned out. It's like, yeah, because you're not bringing the fun and the joy and the play to it that you could be, or maybe that you used to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's also the reason why when you get to, I mean, to take it to, like to WoW or something like that, once you're the highest parser on the server and you've got all the best gear and you've done it all the time, like it's not really fun anymore.
Now
So, I
what? Yeah.
mean, yeah, yeah. I guess you know, what are you gonna do? You start a new game, right? You just devoted all this time to that. So yeah, it's a lot of that. And so, being able to approach it in different ways and have different perspectives is important and it's a lot of fun. So, but yeah, it's a fun ride. And I wish that a lot of the times that I could just, digitize it all and just be like, hey, this actually is a game. And
Yep.
I could set something up to be automated to be able to do it all. But as I said before, you got a whole bunch of different characters in the game. And the characters are your team members. The characters are the people that are in your personal life. The characters are your clients or customers or, whatever it is that generates capital or revenue in terms of your business. There's just a whole lot of characters in it that are just not, they're not going to do it exactly how it's not going to be as clean as you'd like it to be ever. And so,
Yep.
that can sometimes be a challenge. And I wish it was. If it could all could be just a super complicated RPG, then I'd be really happy with that. But unfortunately, it's not. But
Yep.
you can do your best to put it into the right context as you can. So
Exactly. And I love that analogy too about the character sheets and being able to pick, who you're working with. And unfortunately and that is the situation is that you don't necessarily always know who you're working with. And that, leads to conflicts. So like you can't see their character sheet, you can't see their stats, or their character sheet is the resume. And I say, unfortunately, people might, exaggerate their skills on some of the resumes. So you may not be getting what you think you're getting, right? So really just trying to navigate that too. It's just I understand just such a challenge. But just simply just taking it in stride and just saying like, hey, this is, I'm going to play it this way. This is what I have, and if it doesn't work, we can change it, right? Because I imagine that there's definitely been people that have come and gone, and you just, like you said, you kind of have to deal with it, right? Or it's just like, yeah, it doesn't ever stop. You just have to keep going.
yeah, it's tough, man. Like I tell you, also, it's kind of like, you get somebody in and you're like, oh, this person's like a solid 7. And then you have somebody else come in after them and you're like, oh, that person was actually like a 15, right? Or the opposite happens. You're like, this person's like a 10, an 8 or a 9 for us. Somebody else comes in and they're like, oh, that person was actually like a 3, right? You don't, it's almost like the character stat, not only are they hidden, they're also a secret because there's no comparative of like
Mm.
seeing, you're not actually fighting against, an enemy. It's like, oh, this is super effective. Like it doesn't say up at the top whenever
Yeah.
send you a report for the day. Like, Sam was super effective at that. He submitted a TPS report. And you can assume that they are, and you can hope that they are. Basically, you can measure certain things like quantity completed and quality of service and things like that, which are things that we track on a regular basis internally. But that's about all you can do. You can't the the hard part is not the fact is not seeing the character sheets is hard, but also the fact that the comparative is very hard to gauge of like once you've got
Mm.
them in there, especially for newer positions. And if you're an established business like us, so we started about 10 or 12 years ago, and we just went from 0 clients to 0 team members to where we are today. And so we've had just pretty quick growth throughout the time. And there's been times we've had to add people and just have butts and seats instead of having like the best person there. And that's something
Yeah.
that, like you've got to decide, right? Like, do I want to have at least some service, or do I want to have the absolute best person in every seat all the time? And if there was an unlimited human capital piece of the puzzle, then it'd be way easier to say, hey, yeah, this person is not this person I'm playing with, like a C tier character, and I really want only A tier characters,
Hmm.
right? And like I'd really love it if they were all A tier. If I can get an S or S plus in there every once in a while, I'm going to be super happy. But the reality is sometimes C just has to be the person that's there, because if you try and get rid of them, training people just takes up, you have limited resources, right? If
Mm.
you think of the game in terms of resources, time is a quant is a limited resource to be able to get those people in and be able to have them trained. You can do all the videos you want to, you can do all the like the online courses you can create for clients, you can or for team members, you can do all the whatever you want to in terms of like processes and documentation and things like that. But it still just takes time. It still takes some experience for people to kind of get in sometimes and be able to succeed in certain places. So yeah, you've got it's a balance. Like, hey, do I want to expend this resource? It's also costly too when you replace people. So it's like, do I want to expend the resources to get a better person than the C tier character? Because I only have so much time, I only have so much money, I only have so much energy to be able to do that. Like, do I want to spend that time, energy, and money on replacing a C level tier character, or do I want to spend that on yeah, I don't know, improving our practice management software, or do I want to spend time in doing investing in more resources for the firm? Do I want to do it in more marketing? Do I want to spend doing it for things, spending time with my family? Do I want to do it with all these other things?
Yeah.
So there's always a constant battle of that, of trying to do that. Now, if it's an established company, then that might be if it's a stabilized kind of a company, I guess that's a little bit of a different question of like, well,
Yeah.
we want to kind of like optimize by people or things like that too. So that can be tough. I'll also say the other thing that's challenging is it's a virtual CPA firm. I'm in an office today. This is not my home. I do have an actual office, a big boy office, as I like to call it. And
Nice.
we've got so two or three people work out of this office just because I've got three young kids. I got an 11, 9, and 6-year old. And so I spend a lot of time with them. And so I can't work from home all the time. So
I'll
I
say
can only
working from home might be a
visit.
challenge at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll even though they know dad's door is closed, don't go in there. That doesn't stop them. They're very tenacious. So, especially the 6-year old, she just loves ignoring it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I only have so much time. I only have so much energy. I only have so much capacity to be able to do those certain things, and we're all that way. So that can be a challenge too sometimes. Like, hey, because honestly, like I said, my favorite thing to do is optimize.
Right.
If I could just sit and optimize all day long, that would be the thing that I do. I would go and look for the small. I could look for the smallest thing to try and fix, and I would try and fix it. But sometimes you over optimize. Sometimes that can be a bad thing. And honestly, when you've got 35 team members, they don't like it. A lot of people don't like it when you change things.
Right.
So, if I'm going to go from I don't know like a ninja class to a healer class in a game, it only affects me, right? Maybe my
Right.
team, my friends, or whatever in terms of those things. But if I'm like, okay, we're gonna switch our practice management softwares to where like the thing that you log into every day is going to change. And that means also like the way in which you do your work is going to change, and the way that you do all these other things is going to change. You know, getting that to 30 something people and having them all be, understanding the pieces of it is it's a lot. It takes a whole lot. So it's a lot of fun, but yeah, there is times when, it can be there can be challenges with that too. So
That's fantastic. So, yeah, just the amount of optimization. Yeah, I absolutely love it. And you mentioned theory crafting. I've definitely loved doing that in the past too, and just trying to make sure that you're as optimized as possible. I love that. But yeah, it comes with its only drawback in, I guess, in the business world where you have just limited time, resources, and like you said, the effect on others. Right. It's such a good point that when we when we play the games, it's you make a change, you do something, the NPCs. They'll react, but they don't care, right?
mhm.
Whereas the people care when things happen, when things change. And so I guess one last question I think I have as far as trying to understand and minimize, min max, trying to maximize, get the most out of it. Some people may look at that and say, "Wow, that's a lot. What if I just don't?" And what would you say as far as like, maybe I don't even want to hire. Like, at what point should I hire? Because gosh, it sounds like a lot of work. Do I just need to be solo for a while or
Yeah.
longer?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great point and something that you gotta combat with as well. It depends on what level of the game you want to get to, right? In terms of like where you want to go and things like that. Like what is the where is the end goal, right? In terms of it. I also would say that, it's not as when I started the company, I can remember, my dad even tells me to now, is like, you said whenever you started this, if you got to 100 clients, you wouldn't know what to do with it. Like, because you'd be so, you have everything so set. And I was like, well, honestly, I got to 100 clients, I got bored. Like, I didn't want to, I wanted to do other things. And so if I wanted to grow and scale it, then I had to bring other people in to do the stuff because I didn't want to, I didn't, at that size, I couldn't exit myself from the business a bit more in terms of like the day-to-day work.
Yeah.
So like as
At
of
that point, it's
end of the day,
all the day, right?
yeah,
Yeah, the whole day.
it's all about scale, right? It's all about economy of scale and things like that. And you can probably, I mean, you can do it in other ways too. Eventually, if you term comes up with like the formula of it, at some point, the thing that comes out at the end is usually your compensation and how much money you make, right? And so, if there's a certain number you got to get to or you want to get to, then you've got to find a way to that. And for me, I reached that number at a certain point, and I was okay with it. And after that, I was like, I just want to do more because it's more fun for me to build this out, right? I wanted to just keep building, right? I didn't want the game to end. I could have, there's
Uh,
multiple different ways to get out of the game once you in the CPA firm. I can sell the firm, I can merge with somebody else, I could bring on partners, I could hire, an executive to run the company for me or something like that. But I don't want to because I enjoy the game. Now, if I stopped enjoying it, that'd be whenever I'd stop doing it. But I think it's important for people to be like very self-reflective and understand that, you know, my game doesn't have to be your game, right? I don't know, insert whatever business guru or business influencer that's out there. And the same thing applies for them. Whatever they're saying is not the same thing for you, right? You don't have to think about the first job you had in this career, whatever career you're in, and think like, hey, that's the job I got to create. No, just create your own, whatever you enjoy doing, then do that. So I would say that the people element is to me the hardest part of it all. I've always been pretty good at figuring out how to deliver really high value, which usually comes into like that does the marketing for me. So I tell people I've gotten fairly decent at sales. I tell people I was never I thought I was good at sales, and then I became a business owner. I realized I was awful at sales. Um, I thought I was good at sales because I thought that I wasn't afraid to look dumb, and it turns out that's a awful way of looking at sales. The way I tell people about sales now is I say, if you ever had a high school dance that you went to, the person I was never afraid of looking dumb at a high school dance in terms of like just dancing around like looking weird and things like that. But the thing I was afraid of is I was always afraid of getting a no from asking someone to dance. So I said,
ah,
marketing is not being afraid of dancing, but sales is getting the girl to say yes to the dance. So it's a very different skill set, and it's a very different thing that you've got to be able to like, personally be able to deal with in terms of it. So, anyways, that's an aside.
that's
So,
great
but
example, great metaphor. Yeah.
yeah, but the same thing happens in terms of the hiring of people. Yes, that is a way to optimize. You can optimize it down, right? If I there's I I've told people at one point in time, it's like, well, what if I just doubled the prices for all my clients? And then if I doubled the prices for all my clients, then a lot of them would leave, but
Mhm.
some of them would probably stay, and then I could just reduce my headcount, and I'd have way less things to do every day, right? And the
Yep.
way that the math works on profit margin to actually probably be more profitable, be less time and things like that too. That is a way to optimize, but I like to maximize. I like to optimize the maximum. I'm not as concerned about my personal compensation. I'm more concerned about the maximum amount of value I'm deriving to those clients.
Mhm.
So in order to do that, I've got to have a certain amount of scale of people behind me to do that too. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
And that's so important. So understanding for those listening, it's just, what game do you want to play and being able to min max to optimize for that. Right. Because, yeah, because you're right. Your game is not my game. Jonathan's game is not necessarily your game. And it's just what do you want to play and how, and I like the idea of, how far do you want to go? Right. And maybe I'll put my words in it, but it seems like that might be the gamer in you to say like, you wanted to hire and you wanted to grow and you wanted to scale because of that sense of progression. We love that in games, right? To continue to grow, to level, to get to that next stage. And so when you hit that plateau, you're like, okay, now where do I go? So just trying to get to that next stage. I love that. So
yeah,
yes.
for sure.
So I think
Yeah, I've quit a lot of the games at those plateaus too because it's like I didn't like
yeah.
I guess this is game related, but it's not RPG related. But like
Mm,
chess is a really good example of this.
mm,
If you go and play chess and you can get there, you have like huge plateaus in chess. If you get to a certain skill level, it's like, oh, you've gotten to, I don't know, 1500 in terms of your elo, and like to get to 2000, you're gonna have to put in like 5 years of work, like daily work or something like that. I don't know the actual comparatives, but
yeah.
it is a supreme amount of grind to just start having incremental levels of going up
Yeah.
of that. And my personal style is like I really don't like that. Like I don't once I get to those levels and I see like, hey, the amount of effort to get to that next level is so much now, and I like if I've gone from here to here with certain like X effort, and the same amount of effort is going to take me from here to like here, like I'm just not going to do it. Like I'm just like
Yeah.
this is good enough for me. Like I don't have to go to that next level of that. And I've not seen that yet. I still feel like I'm still able to put in X and X and X and X and X, and maybe it is diminishing a bit. But I actually see there's some things like, hey, at some point I can actually go from here and I'll put the same amount of effort in, and I'll actually just go like way up here in terms of the valley. Like there's
Yeah.
unlocks that happen if you can do it the right way too. So so that's part of what keeps me going with that too.
No, I love that example. That's fantastic. So, as we close out this particular episode, I just want to make sure, is there anything else we missed? Anything else you would suggest to anybody looking, I guess, to grow, to change, especially around hiring? Just kind of curious, have we missed anything?
You know, the I think the hardest thing for me to learn to do because I am a people pleaser. The hardest thing for me to do was learning how to fire. And it's something that I'm way better at now than I used to be. But the firing side of things can be a challenge because it's not as easy as just saying, hey, backing out of the screen and choosing a new character, right? It takes a lot of time. It can be emotionally taxing. You're affecting someone's livelihood and things like that. But at the end of the day, the way that I personally did now is number one is we give a severance, which is something that as a small business we're not required to do, but it's something that I personally do just from an emotional standpoint. It helps me be more personally okay with it. Two is the way I look at it now is like I'm protecting all those other players that are in the game with me. If I let a bad character stay in for too long, then all the other people that are on my team, they're gonna have to work harder. They're gonna have to, do that person's job. The clients are gonna be as well taken care of. The people that I am paying that are the higher level characters, the resources are going to be eaten up by that person. I can't pay those people as much because that person's taking their profit. Um, so the learning to fire skill is something that takes a little bit of time too. And the only other thing I'd say is I didn't talk about is probably my favorite game. So I was huge. Probably
That was
Earthbound
going to
was
be
probably
my
my
last
favorite.
question. Yep.
Oh, really? That's okay. Yeah. So my favorite game growing up was Earthbound. I played it probably a dozen times at least from the
Earthbound. Ooh, good
SNES.
choice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Love that.
the and I know there's a lot of games out there now. I wish I could have had more time to indulge in nerd culture, but the way the games have progressed at this point, now I'm 42 at this point in my life, and yeah, it's really hard for me to get into games anymore. I still love them, still feel like it's like a
Yep.
core part of me and something that I enjoy doing. I still like I'll listen to like playthroughs and I'll watch people play games in my spare time and things like that. But the ability to have time to actually play them myself is something that is I've had to kind of realize that I can't spend the time doing it anymore. And to be fair, I spend that time with my kids more often now.
Yeah.
So which
Understandable.
luckily, yeah, a few of them like it. We got the new Switch 2 in, so I've been able to show them
Nice. There you
how to
go.
lose gracefully at Mario Kart. So
Love it.
so yeah, so that's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Gosh. So, Jonathan, thanks so much. And I guess, is there any way to connect with you if people want to learn more or potentially even work with you if they're an aspiring dentist and looking for a CPA?
Yeah, yeah. So the website's toothandcoin.com. So you can book a call in there with me if you want to go through there. That's my website, and I think that we found each other in some video game forums or on Facebook pages where we found each other. So
Yeah.
I'm on those as well. And so you can reach me there through my email, which is my first name, Jonathan at toothandcoin.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Jonathan. And guys, if you're interested in looking to use your gaming skills and really try to take this to the next level, definitely let me know. Hit me up, dragonmorexp.com. Start your journey there and transfer your skills into the corporate world. Because you're a gamer, you're awesome, and you can do things that people don't realize. And it's absolutely phenomenal. So, guys, Jonathan, thanks so much for being here. This has been fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Like I said, that's the world that I lived in, and I have that's some of my fondest memories as a kid is playing is going through games and going through that experience. So I'm a big believer in them.
Gosh, and we already know, and like I said, the last question I always ask is, what is your favorite game? And he's already jumped the gun and he's already got me. It is Earthbound. So there you go. And guys, this has been so much fun. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here. Everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And remember, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.